Namanda, 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 Namanda.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to this morning's family service. My name is Denny Tadal, and I will be the chairperson this morning. We will begin this morning's service with Sambujo on pages 24 and 25, followed by the Junidai on page 67.
Namanda, 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 Namanda. Ida 永州天人職業阿弥陀千両属尊在意未明安楽無量無視主意念本直心上両線のシャマタ行両像両目上略少年芸法が将来見出そう天前年上両万月以降有料千日月少量天空しら法が将来見出そう観音頂戴観中中集中名相法正門農福芸道魔芸を満法が将来見出そう無義無苦交渉上修徳経験す両国小差利役徳自在法が将来見出そう実法名門菩薩衆無料小魔女三段一生修上願力中法が将来見出そう本体法見知正形全門少女名大座おひざ上行線の法が将来見出そう実法将来勝負し変幻人図思安楽戦後尊厳上量法が将来見出そう勝負無常無我と薬行水月伝養老一種説法無名字法が将来見出そう一尊無説無悪行薬無量になく道具主任自信教非尊法が将来見出そう一尊無量法勉強無所主悪知識往生不体死亡大法が将来見出そう仮説非尊苦毒事
Please stand for our first Gatha, Nembutsu 1 on page 169, and then remain standing for the three refuge fold on page 10.
Threefold refuge. Can't even find it. We don't even read it so much. Huh? Okay. It's a threefold refuge. Difficult is it to receive a human form. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the Dharma of the Buddha. Now we hear it. If we do not cross over to the truth in the present life, in what life shall we cross over? Let us with sincerity and true reverence take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we, together with all sentient beings, awaken to the great way of enlightenment and to the unsurpassed intent of Alameda Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we, together with all sentient beings, enter the storehouse of the Dharma, becoming like the wisdom ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we, together with all sentient beings, become units in true accord, in harmony with all things. The peerless, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rare to encounter, even in many hundreds and thousands of kalpas. Now we are privileged to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of the Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, 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 Namanda. Thank you. Please be seated.
Now Reverend Fujimoto will share a Dharma message with us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ohayou gozaimasu. Okay. A little bit less of a crowd than Friday. Very nice. Okay, I think everyone's worn out from the big effort to put on the service, special service for Mr. Mastakano. Even yesterday, the gardeners were here, and towards the end, I thought, I gotta go home and sit down for a minute, and I just fell asleep. I never came back out. I came outside, and everything's cleaned up, and everybody's gone. I said, oh, no. I felt so bad. So today, we have a guest today. Mas is still here, okay? And so he's able to join us, and the family has a plan to put him into the niche tomorrow. So I told him I could bring him. So yeah, he's still here. He'd rather be here than with his kids anyway. But it was a very nice service. Everyone worked so hard and put in a big effort to make it go smoothly and comfortably for all the family and the guests, and so it was special. So Mas is still here, and even though it was a special service, you don't have to get a big head about it, Mas. Sorry, I had to include that to put his big head up here today. So very nice to come to that conclusion, to have the special service, and we had so many people from all over, all parts, and people remembering Mas not only from the temple or the community, but wherever he worked, people flying in from other cities as well. So it was very special. So because of that, I wanted to talk a bit about the losses, and we did have this special service for Mas, and also just the day before, on the Thursday, there was a special service for Mrs. Yumiko Hojo. This was at the San Jose Betsuin, so I was able to go there with my mother and Charmin, and took part in the service for Mrs. Hojo. And some of us might know her. I don't know if everyone knows her, but she wrote gathas and was very prominent in beginning appreciation of music in our services for all of BCA. Some of you might recognize the Obon song that we are familiar with. Obon, Obon, it's festival day. And that's her song. And so we sing it pretty regularly when Obon season comes about. And I should tell you, just yesterday, there was a message on the temple phone, and someone who's been to our Obon, but she wasn't so familiar with the ways of the temple. She said, I want to ask you, are you going to have your Udon festival this year? So I called her back and left a message. I think you're talking about the Obon festival, but we will have it. And so she called back and was happy to get corrected on that. So yeah, Mrs. Hojo did so many things for the music department of BCA, and wherever Reverend Hojo, her husband, served, and kind of parallel to Mrs. Terao. We hold Mrs. Terao in highest regard here, and whatever temple the Terao family was serving at, and the same was true for Mrs. Hojo and Reverend Hojo. And so as the husbands passed away, and my mother as well. So often when there were major, national events, conferences, BCA conferences and things, at the service you would find Mrs. Hojo, Mrs. Terao, and Mrs. Fujimoto, my mother. They would sit together at the service, kind of like the respected elders of BCA. And so they had a special connection, special place, whenever they were at the service together. And, my mother would tell me about, sitting there with them. And usually the conversation would go. We would have a procession of ministers coming in, and one of them would ask, "Oh, who's that one?" The new ministers that come, and so, who's this one talking to each other in Japanese? Shiran. They don't know who the young ones are. They would have connections to the older ministers and seeing, who looks well and who's gained some weight, and they're just talking about the different ministers as they come down the procession. And if they knew some of the younger ones, they would share that information and keep each other up as to what's going on in the BCA circles. And so he had a really tremendous, special friendship that, and my mother was here for both of those services. So she is still with us, but special to have that reflection as we were able to go to Mrs. Hojo's service at San Jose, and also to see how a different temple, how a Betsuin would hold their services over there. And coming up later this week, we have a special family memorial for Mrs. Terao. So this is all part of the connecting the pieces, different dots to the ways of the Sangha, the ways of the temple. So to think closely about all of these people and how they were interrelated and interconnected in so many ways. It's kind of enriching to be a part of a Sangha. And people who are a little bit further away, that's the aspect that they don't come to be able to savor and appreciate and find joy in that. So also very recently, there were some losses at my former temple, Sharman's Temple, Idaho, Oregon Buddhist Temple, and we talk about that a lot, so I don't mind mentioning that here. There's a gentleman named Jim Wazuda, and he started their judo dojo in Ontario, Oregon, and many of their Nisei pioneers to the area were the founders of this judo dojo. And not only a place of judo, but a place of practice and respect and, parallel teachings to that of the temple. And so I think because of how they were able to bring that to the temple, many people, not only Japanese American, but the whole greater community came to participate in judo, came to learn about the traditions and the values of judo, to come upon the mat, to train with each other, respect for your opponent, bowing, clearly bowing as soon as you step onto the mat, and then you participate in your match. And this kind of respect and appreciation, and gratitude, all these things that was learned, not only from the young ones of the temple, but of the whole community. And they would have a major tournament at the junior college there, and teams would come from California and Seattle and all over the place. And all these people in Ontario was held in high regard, that they would have such a special place. And Jim was a big leader of that. So many of the other founders have passed away, and he's one of the last ones. And he would come to the temple, not say very much, and he'd be quiet farmer, but just powerfully built and strong. After service, he'd shake my hand. Didn't hear a damn word you said, Sensei, but good morning. And he would come earlier on Saturdays, and he'd have one of those things to pick up the litter, and the wind is strong, so all this litter's slammed up against the chain link fence, and he's picking that up every single week. He doesn't want any recognition or anything. Don't put my name in the newsletter. Just leave me out of it. And just pick it up, clean up the temple, just complete respect. You could see just by how he holds himself, everything he does. So these kind of people we have such an appreciation for. There was another, Isoko Yoshihara, and she was 103 and just passed away up there. But I've told the story a number of times of how I was first introduced there at the Idaho, Oregon Buddhist Temple. They hadn't had a minister for a few years, and so I was asked to go up there, and it has become that the minister is invited to a temple, and they can see if they think they fit and how does it. You're not just assigned there. You can choose, should I go there or not? And the temple people can meet you and choose, do we like this sensei or not, right? So it's kind of like that, and they were very happy to have a sensei come, and they invited me on the cleanup day, so everybody would come to the temple, and I try to jump in and help, breaking up the leaves and throwing them on the back of the truck and doing this and that. And Charmin tells a different story about it because her uncle was there. He thought I was this real old man that came. He had no hair. So you could hear her own version of my being there. But the cleanup crew was there. We met, the women are cleaning inside the temple and the men are cleaning outside in the garden. And I'm helping out and saying hello where I can. And then after the cleanup morning was done, I was invited to the nursing home. So my wife is not doing too well. Would you mind having a service at the nursing home? Well, sure, we could do that. And that was like in between. And later in the evening, early evening, thought we're going to have a welcome dinner for you, Sensei. So everyone will come. And when it came to be evening, so they were so apologetic. Sensei, it's so foggy today. A lot of members aren't going to be able to come. Still, there were a lot of members. I said, oh, that's okay. It looks like a nice crowd here. And so meeting everybody, and towards the very end, there's one, their social hall, not so different from here, but they had a stage where we used to have a stage, and one gentleman sitting on the side of the stage, and this thick glasses on. So I'm saying hello to everybody. And this was Isoko's husband, Taro. So Taro says, can't see very much anymore, Sensei. I'm losing my eyesight. So I said, oh, it's okay. I'm not much to look at anyway. So, and just making small talk with them, and just chatting with them, and things starting to shut down. So they starting to put things away, put the food away, and then because it was a foggy night, Isoko and Taro went home, and they lived, 5 miles away. And so on their way home, because of the fog, Isoko's driving, Taro can't see, right? Isoko's driving, and they missed their driveway. So when they went a few hundred yards further to make this turn, but it's a blind corner. This semi-truck came around the corner, bam, hit their car. And so I didn't know anything about it, and after a couple hours, I'm staying at the parsonage, and the temple president, Mikey Sherry, said, Sensei, I know you're just visiting, but we've had an accident, and one of our members passed away. Can you come into the hospital and do a pillow service? So sure, I can come. I'll pick you up. So we went, and Isoko is running around, kind of panicked, and Taro got hit and had passed away. And she was so much adrenaline running. She had a broken rib and something else, and she was too involved to be concerned about herself, worried about her husband. And so we did this pillow service, and so everything was just such a thing that I felt like part of the community instantly. It's like, I have to come here. I have to be back here. And so later on, so we talked about that event. It's like, it's like Taro took one for the team because he passed away. They got a minister, right? And so it's kind of that kind of connection. I still have furniture that Taro made by hand that, when they moved out because he passed away and Isoko had to move in with the kids, they had to empty the house, and so they're giving away their furniture, and we have some things from their home. And so for Isoko to pass away so recently, 103 years old, and all of these things, we have a deep connection and relationship to each loss, right? And even coming up, Reverend Sasaki, his funeral is at 1 week from today. And so I'll be able to participate in that because 5th Sunday we have no service here. And Laverne Sasaki, my father was the best man at his wedding. And I always wondered, why is that? Because my dad's much older than Laverne, right? And I didn't really get it. It might be because Laverne didn't have too many friends. But I think the story is that my father and my mother, they were there still in Japan when the next group of ministers came. So Reverend Sasaki and Reverend Tai Tetsugundo, they're about the similar age, and about 5 of them were there. And so they would get together and have a meal and have some beers or sake or whatever and enjoy the evening in each other's company, talking about Buddhism and just keeping up with each other. But they would come to my parents' home. And so ending up, if they had a beer or 2 more than they needed to, then they would be sleeping on the floor the next morning. And so they would be there. And this was the little gang, right? And so because of that, they became very close. And so Sasaki Sensei had asked my father to be the best man at his wedding. So many of these connections that we lose people. And I had invited Reverend Sasaki up to Idaho, Oregon, and when he came, I learned a lot from him, just because when we went to a restaurant for dinner, and he's taking notes, a chart, exactly where everyone sat, and the name of every single person in the room, so that he would put this away. He always had pen and pad, and keeping these kinds of notes. So when he went back to that temple again, he would know people just by name and talk to them. So, myself and a lot of other ministers, oh, gee, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. My memory's not too good and blah, blah, blah. But he would make it such a point, remember every single person, something about them to tweak his memory every time he came and saw them again at another conference, at another city, and he would help himself remember. So, wow, so impressive, huh? And so these kind of things that we are able to learn, and each of these things that we, connections, so here, must, very special that meant so much, and we, so unexpected that we expected him to join us again, that he would be sitting with us, sharing another meal, and we didn't get to have that. So each of these things that we see, a deeper view of what the temple is, what the Sangha is, and how our connections go. So thinking about all these losses and what's coming up at the temple, Sharma and I have been talking about this a few times, and even we go take care of Shadow and we park the car, and we just still sitting in the car because we're talking about these kind of things. So I was wondering, inviting Sharman, maybe Sharman can say a few thoughts about these, what we have been talking about. So I would like to invite Sharman to come up and share a few thoughts on the same part. So, part 2, Fujimoto part 2 is what we're having here, okay?
Good morning. I will do this. Can you hear me? Now?
Yes.
So I sat in the back, and you were saying, and Moss is here with us and doing this, until I came up to Oshoko. I didn't see his urn. Old age, old eyes. So I guess for me, we combine all our worlds. And that circle of life, we're always so excited when we hear about the birth, or we see spring come and the flowers come on the trees, and the ume tree out here and the ume tree at the parsonage is so meaningful to me this year because Moss worked on that tree because it was sick last year. And this year it's loaded with ume, but then they planted a new ume tree and that is loaded. And so I just feel like Moss's influence is everywhere. I see in the spring all these new things, and yet we're going through these cycles within our worlds as well as our relationships with people. So as Sensei said, Tadao family in the Northwest is royalty. And in Spokane, they're always, our temple had the Shabatas, the Tadaos were in Spokane, so that was huge in the Northwest. So exciting to be able to come to Alameda and be a part of this family. And Mrs. Tadao was just really held in high esteem, as all the Tadaos are. As far as the Idaho-Oregon temple goes, Isoko's daughter, this is my little criminal story. Isao's daughter was my Sunday school teacher, and she was so tall and beautiful. I was probably like 6, but she was so tall and beautiful, and she went to the homecoming that year with someone from Nessa, and I remember how beautifully she was dressed. It's super cold over there. It's like freezing cold, but so the gals all wear their beautiful gowns. They get homecoming mugs. But I remember her because she was so beautiful. She was my idol, and she was so beautiful. And so I always watched how she moved, how she was. This was Isoko's daughter. This was Tado's daughter. And so that family always meant so much to me because their daughter was my idol. And she didn't remember me when her father passed away and I went to the hospital. And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry your father passed." And she goes, "I don't remember you. The name is kind of familiar." I said, "Here." And I get way down low. I was like 6. "Do you recognize me now?" She goes, "No, I don't." But I remember her as being so tall, and she wasn't tall anymore because I must have grown. So it's so interesting over time, these feelings we have. And I remind myself, this is that circle we go on, that we take our health for granted when we wake up and we can open our eyes and we can see immediately, or we can swallow and not be coughing, and we're dealing with our illnesses or those we love with their illnesses, and we go on throughout our day, and then we see people who get progressively not well or not moving right, and we get concerned, and then we see, we get to the point where we hear about, oh, so-and-so passed away, so-and-so passed away. So that cycle, and then remembering after they pass, all that our lives have changed because of them. And for me, as we go through and we talk about these people that passed, I have to remember to be grateful because I don't finish that circle. That's a spiral that's always swirling around us of all of the things we receive. That's the Dharma, and that's Amida surrounding and supporting us, never leaving us. And these people have become our bodhisattvas that look after us, look over us, and are quietly, with wisdom and compassion, witnessing us as we go through. I know you're not like this, but my struggles look sometimes like this, right? Or heartbreak, or sadness, or frustration or however our emotions may go, until I find that place again in balance with wisdom and compassion. So all of these people we have lost, and the young people that we lose, and the people our age that we lose, and the elders we lose, and those little ones that we lost, all of them mean so much. But I guess for me, to always remember that there's so much we receive every day. Somebody cut trees so we could have these chairs we're sitting on. Somebody was a part of manufacturing this carpet our feet are on. Somebody grew the food that we've all had throughout our lives so we could be here today. So many things that we put it all in the perspective of all the support that surrounds us, constantly uplifting us. And our wonderful, joyful journey through this is to recognize others and be a part of their journey as they're going through whatever they may be going through. And when we're feeling good, we support them. And when they're at their losses, they help us, right? So this is a constant thing. We always remember that we are always surrounded and supported by incredible people. People that you might not remember, but people might remember you, or one little smile, or one little thing that you did. And you might not know that there's a little person thinking, oh my goodness, my hero. And even at my age now, every day I find my heroes, that those people that I see, the familial faces, those are things that give me such deep comfort in my heart. So when we have these losses, that we all realize we move through this together, and we're on the spiral of constantly moving to the next step. And we support each other in this journey, and we allow others to help us as we deal with sickness, old age, loss. And for that, I'm so appreciative for this Sangha, this temple, each one of you, your mothers, fathers, and the hundreds of generations that came before us. Animals, water, plants. We're lucky. We've always had those stars, the sun and the moon. And we are sandwiched in this huge universe of just incredible gifts that we receive always. That to me is Amida. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. And I'm grateful for you too, sweetie pie.
Okay, yeah, very nice. I'm happy Sharma is able to share some of her thoughts as well. And I think, all of us are touched when we go through something recently together to prepare. And I think of times when there, someone, even an elder in their later 80s, being invited to the temple, and had this attitude, right? I don't need the temple kind of sense, or somebody even my age is, I don't believe in that stuff. What's the stuff? What's the stuff, right? When we put on a service or help a family through a service, this is compassion. We are living compassion, not thinking about it. We are doing compassion. Compassion is not from me to you, but flowing this way from beyond us and through us. And it goes where it's needed, as it's needed, and we become part of it. Okay? Wisdom is incomplete without the compassion, which is us touching someone else, us touching their lives, making something go a little bit smoother. And it's in that sense that when we lose someone, they become a part of this infinite reality. They become a bodhisattva in the sense that the compassion goes through them and then through us and then to someone else, right? So we are in this flow of compassion, and it's not a matter of do I know the teachings, do I believe in the teachings, do I have faith in the teachings? That's not the question. That's not the question. We're living it as we do what we do, and it happens here. All the more gets magnified through our connections at the temple. So that's what makes this place special. And I think it's kawaiso, sad when people don't recognize that. They don't see the value to not only send a check once a month, but to be here and to see that and to be a part of that. Be a part of that. Please join me in Gassho. We'll conclude our message today. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Anda. Namo Anda. Thank you.
Thank you, Sensei. Thank you, Sensei. Thank you, Charmin. Your sermon was very thoughtful and thought-provoking, reflective. I too have very fond memories of Ontario. I used to go with my friends from Spokane to visit Ontario. As you're mentioning, there's a lot of Japanese-American farmers there. We used to, my friends and I used to go to Ontario because the farmers had all these cute daughters that we used to like to go and visit. Okay, with that, will you please stand for the next gatha, Ondok-san 2, on page 220. Thank you very much for attending today's service. Special thanks to everybody who helped with the preparations, to the very thought-provoking organist. Let's see. So, are there any newcomers today? Everybody looks part of the family here. Are there any special announcements to make today? One thing is there will be. Oh, yeah, yes, please.
I have two paintings in an art gallery in Fremont through the end of May, and it's called Olive High Gallery, and it's on the top of Washington Avenue and Mission Boulevard. And so if you ever happen to be in Fremont, stop by and see my painting. One got a merit award, and it really was a shock because I've been painting for 40 years, and to finally get a merit award on one of my paintings really touched me. So, thank you. And I appreciate the support. Everybody here is really special.
Okay. So there are no further.
I have an announcement. So I got a message, the gardening crew was here. There were some tools left outside, bigger, like a scoop shovel and rake and something else. 3 bigger things, like they were all tied together and forgot to be loaded onto the truck. So if someone else should call, they're behind the wooden fence, next to Shinran, on the house side of the fence. So they're just laying on the ground there. But if someone should contact anyone else other than me, let them know to come in and pick them up. Okay, so I'm sure they'll notice it's missing and they'll need them. All right. And I was gonna. Is it okay if about the food? Have people take more food? It's kind of, if we had more people.
We warmed it up. We're gonna serve it.
Oh, you warmed it up? Yeah, I want to make sure people take as much as they can home, because it's not going to last more than a day here. We have to let it go. So if you can use some more of the food, not only one plate, but take some home with you and thank Mas for it. All right? Okay. Thank you.
For today's service, we'll conclude, but it is a Ask Reverend Dennis session. So please, if you have any questions or thoughts for Reverend Dennis, please speak up.
Okay, so this is our fourth Sunday of the month, and this is when we have our Ask Reverend Dennis sessions. So those of you out in TV land, anytime you have your own questions, you can email them to me, or however you can get your questions or thoughts to me, and I can compile them and use them when we have our sessions for Ask Reverend Dennis. I got a couple questions sent to me, and when those people are not here, I feel badly to use those questions. So a couple of them I'm going to hang on to, but I do have others. And so if you have some, I can get to these first, but if you can think of one, poke your hand up and I'll know to call on you before we get done. Okay? So, did anyone have immediate questions? Okay, let me answer these first, okay? One of the questions was about Obutsudan, when the family no longer has the need for an Obutsudan, maybe they're downsizing or things like that, and how do we dispose of things of that nature? So it might not only be a Obutsudan, but maybe you have broken onenju, or you might have service books that are 300 years old or something that grandma left for you. And some of these are nice, but especially at the temple, we have it's nice to keep a record of the service books that we used to use back in the day, but we don't need 200 of them, right? So how do we dispose of things like that in the Obutsudan? And ideally, you find another family who is looking for an Obutsudan, and they can adopt that Obutsudan. So rather than buying something new, they have something with history and connection. And so this can be shared from one family to the next family, or at least from the temple to the families, and to explain all the different aspects, explain and where they can get the parts that are missing and whatever. Some ministers and other people as well like to take it upon themselves. They're not all in good repair, so sometimes they need a little bit of loving care to fix this door, or the shoji screen on the door might need some work, or things like this. So it becomes kind of a labor of love. So other things that sometimes there's no place to put it, so sometimes they are burned. And I think it's nice to be able to do that. Some other traditions call it a puja, fire puja, and puja means ceremony. So a fire ceremony, and you could have a special place to be able to burn items that are sacred. Okay, I had a friend in Ontario, and he was a practicing Tibetan Buddhist, and he would have on occasion these fire pujas and invite his Tibetan Buddhist friends, and he lived on a farm, so he'd dig this deep pit, and he'd have this pit, and they would throw not only these items but feed the fire with grains and alcohol and different things, and build up this fire, and then he'd put in certain items with them. And it was kind of, I don't think it was a traditional way that he did it. He would put on these goggles, and he would look like Mad Max kind of thing, and sit there like the king of a throne and invite everyone to throw in whatever they needed to. I thought we could do something similar, not so drastic, but I don't know, some kind of, like those green egg barbecue pits that you could maybe use something that's a little bit deeper. We don't need it to be as big as the chicken pit or something. Somewhere where we could have a fire that is controllable. And so, part of the question was, if we do burn it, there's so many limitations and regulations and things like this. And two things you need to be careful of if you have a fire ceremony. First, be very careful. Second, be very sneaky. So these things are important and should guide your efforts. You don't want to, a lot of them are lacquerware, right? So you don't want to be burning lacquerware and inhaling any of that. You don't want it to get onto your chicken or your saba if you're cooking something afterwards, right? And so all of these things you want to be careful. Certainly you don't want to get arrested and dragged away too. So these are the very important principles. Careful, sneaky. Okay? Just ask Reverend Dennis. He knows. Okay. Another question was about memorial services, and we have quite often we hear after the funeral on the seventh day, we have of the years, 1 year, 3 years, 7th year, and it gets confusing. So on our Shotsuki list in the newsletter, we show people exactly what year we asked. We can contact the temple and make an arrangement to have these services, and make the plans for the family and such. So they're wondering about it because the first year, it's the year after a person's death, right? And the third year seems to be at the second year. So there's kind of confusion as to when we're supposed to do things. The seventh one is after the sixth memorial, and many people get confused and, oh, I forgot, it's supposed to be last year. Oh no. But in our tradition in Japan, the funeral is the first memorial. Okay? So after 1 year, it's the second memorial. They call it the 1 year service because it's been 1 year. Okay? So that's why the 1 year service is actually technically the second memorial. So for myself, I count memorials rather than years. So it's time for the third memorial, okay? Rather than confusing them. Okay? Does that make sense? So people don't remember that they're counting from the funeral as the first memorial. And that kind of bypasses most of the confusion. Did anybody here forget a memorial? We can have these at any time, basically. So that's okay too. Recently, I did a 7th year memorial, and it should have been the prior year. And I said, it's okay. We can just call it the seventh memorial, and we'll just have the service for your mother. They wanted to have it at the home because the mother was never able to visit her daughter's new house. So they had it new, and it's kind of like inviting mom to be a part of their home setting. So that it ended up being very nice. So anyway, this is a distinction that it does get confusing to count just the years. Okay. Any questions come up? Anything else? Okay, I found one that was, someone is asking if Alameda is considered a god, and so they looked in the, I think it might have been Encyclopedia Britannica kind of source, right? And they list Alameda as a great savior deity worshipped by mainly the Pure Land school of Buddhism in Japan. Okay, so they do call it a deity, a savior, and so this does make it confusing, huh? So here, especially, I try to make it a point, always try to convey it's not a deity, not a god, just a symbol of truth and the reality that's surrounding all of us. So that's one of the things I brought up at the last Ask Reverend Dennis, where they were asking about, I know what it was. We read this at the 800th Memorial, 850th, 800, and it's called Our Pledge, and written by the current Gomonchu. And breaking out of my shell, I will share a warm smile and speak gentle words, just like the kind Buddha. Right? And they had the last word of each verse, just like the kind Buddha, just like the calm and peaceful Buddha, just like the compassionate Buddha, like the Buddha who tirelessly works to liberate all. And when they use these kind of words, it personalizes it, but it also makes it seem like it's some kind of being, right? And so because of that, I don't care to use these words because it kind of reinforces our thought of Alameda being a godlike entity, right? And so to get away from that, I prefer to just read the three treasures and things like that, where he's not really referred to as someone who's going to, like a role model for us, right? This is the reality that we're living in. And in contrast to that, at Mas's service, pretty sure Reverend Endo made the point that Master Kano returned to the Pure Land. So in that sense, return to the Pure Land gives you the idea that we all come from this greater reality. When we pass away, we disperse to this greater reality. And we are interconnected with all of this reality. Okay. Right now, we have this temporary human form, but this form will dissolve, disperse, and go into this infinite. And this is where we come from. And that, to me, that makes sense. And maybe that's why the Nembutsu sounds and feels familiar when we say it, because it comes from this greater reality, the voice of the infinite coming to us. And we are part of this infinite before we're born. And we're part of it now. And we're a part of it when we die. And so this voice from the infinite comes from somewhere that we are integrally a part of. So there's a familiarity, a resonance that comes from, we are recognizing our own realm. So to me, that makes sense that the Nembutsu, there's a comfort level there that you recognize those words, that voice, that part of you who is and was and will be a part of this infinite reality. Okay. Question number 4. think we're done. Okay, it was a good Ask Reverend Dennis, so thank you very much. If you have some thoughts, please send them forward. It's always fun to try to think about how I can talk about this topic or that topic and have it make sense. And the things we do, it all makes sense. And so if we realize that, then we have all the deeper appreciation of our tradition. So please join me in Gassho. We'll conclude for today. Namo Amidabutsu. Namo Amidabutsu. Namo Amidabutsu. Namanda, Namanda, Namanda. Okay, let me relight the incense.
Yeah.